Hey guys, Chris at the Ultimate Recycler. I've come to have a chat to you today about something a little bit different from recycling. Obviously you know because you've seen the thumbnail. I had a little bit of a health hiccup this year. Turned out good, so no panic right from the start, but it's a worry, and I thought I'd make this video I just felt that I should, because you never know who's going to see it. And it was a bit of a fluke that I caught this at the right time, and I must thank my brother for that, which we'll go into a little bit later. But basically I thought, well, I've got a big enough channel now, and I know when with my favourite YouTubers, I like to watch everything they do. Once you get to know someone, you kind of follow them, and you enjoy their exploits outside their given YouTube area. So I thought I'd do this video just to share what happened. Now, if you found this video from a search, a Google search or a YouTube search, and you don't know anything about my channel, hopefully you get what you're looking for out of it. But feel free to have a look around my channel and check out some of my playlists. You might hang around for a bit. If you're a regular subscriber and a supporter of my channel, thanks for watching again. And who knows, this may help someone. So what happened earlier this year, I had a text from my brother. He just sent a text to me and my folks and said, look, he had a little melanoma on his side, and the doctors said, look, no drama, it's not a serious one, but they're going to take it off. So I thought, oh, that's interesting, because there's no history of skin cancer in my family that I'm aware of. And I thought, well, you immediately then start thinking of, well, you know, these things are possible. You know, my brother's got one. It doesn't just happen to other people you don't know. So I had this mark on my leg. Now, it's on my lower leg, and I'll show you some photos in a minute. Hopefully you're not too squeamish. And I'd never bothered to get it checked. It had been there for a few years, I think. It was that unremarkable that I don't even know how long it had been there. It must have grown a little bit. It didn't look sinister, and that's something when I started to do a little bit of reading about melanoma, is that they're not always a sinister looking black spot, or people associate them with a mole or something that's really obvious that you should get checked. And I read that a lot of melanomas actually occur, some of them don't even have any pigment, any colour, and they can, I had some figures here, let me just quote my notepad. 20 to 30% of melanomas are found in existing moles, which is relatively low. I thought that would be the higher case. 70 to 80% can arise in normal skin, and they don't actually look sinister. So the message in this video is perhaps it's worth checking things. Now, what happened with me was I was at the doc just for a standard blood test, and the only reason I actually bothered to ask her, what's this thing on my leg, should I look further, should we get it checked out, was that my brother Greg had had a small melanoma removed, and I thought, well, it doesn't hurt to ask. And that's the whole premise of this video. It doesn't hurt to get things checked, and as it turned out, it was lucky I did. So the process then went that my doctor had a look, and she didn't think it was anything very serious, but she said, best go and see the other doc at the clinic that specialises in skin checks. So I made another appointment, which bugged me because I don't like time out of my day. I like to be productive. And anyway, he had a bit of a look, and he did a bit of umming and ahhing, and he got his little gadget out that looked like a sonic screwdriver that you look through. And anyway, he said, well, he wasn't really sure. He thought we should take a little sample. So he did that, and he sent it off, and I'd pretty much forgotten about it because I didn't think it was anything to worry about. I thought, well, I've done my due diligence. I've asked about it. Anyway, about a week later, or I don't remember, it was probably about a week, I get a text to come in to go and make an appointment. And he said, well, and at that stage I was a little anxious because usually they don't follow it up unless it needs to. So I went in there, and he said, well, he said it's not bad enough to be called a melanoma, but we're not sure what it is. Now, at this stage I'll show you a photo, and it actually looks a lot worse in this photo than what it felt like it looked on my leg, because as you can see there, the doc, this is a surgeon, had actually drawn around it in purple texture. So he did that nice decoration, but it does actually highlight the area, and it didn't look that bad. So anyway, the doc, back to the local surgery here, or the local clinic, the doctor said, well, the sample says that whilst they haven't identified it as a melanoma, we probably think it's best to have it removed. And I said, oh, okay, well, if that be the case, and I thought it might just be another quick appointment and a few injections in my leg and a bit of local and snip it off and away we go. But things developed that I had to go to the nearest major hospital because it was something that he couldn't do in his rooms there. And so I ended up going in for day surgery, which again was a bugger because it was a whole day out of productivity for me. But anyway, you cope with these things. So had the surgery. It was a full-on, knock me out, surgical theatre, all the machines that go beep and the whole bit. So I had a nice snooze and woke up, and the surgeon came and said, well, look, it's, we've taken it all off, and there's quite a few stitches in your leg because we had to stretch. And if you remember back to that photo I'll show you again, that wide purple area was actually where they cut the skin further back so they could stretch it over the part they took out. So it didn't require a skin graft, but it was still a fair area. And the surgeon said it was a bit tricky because there's not actually a lot of meat there, as you well know, just around the side from your shin. So anyway, all went well. It healed up quite well. You can see here in this picture the stitches they put in, and this was just before they took them out, and it had healed quite well. It wasn't overly sore, and the stitches were easy enough to take out there, so that was all good. Didn't think any more of it. Lo and behold, a week or so later, I get a call from the surgeon, and he said, it turns out the sample they sent away to be tested, which I guess I didn't even think about it, but I guess it's standard procedure. Turns out that it is, or it was, a melanoma. And I thought, well, geez, that's a bit of a scare, but at least it's gone, and hopefully, and he said, well, you have to get skin checks regularly, and I think that's a good idea for any of us that are getting on a bit. I mean, I'm in my mid-50s. Anyone that sort of lived through the 70s, back really kind of before the old hat and sunscreen message was pounded into us. We grew up on a farm, and we were sunburnt every second day in summer, and you didn't think much of it. Anyway, back to the story. The surgeon said, yes, you better come back in, it is a melanoma, we're going to have to take a bit more off. And I kind of said, well, really? You took the whole thing off? And he had met with his fellow surgeons and people that deal with cancers and melanomas, and they had basically said that there's a set margin they need to take off around the outside of the actual melanoma, and because they didn't know this one was a melanoma, he didn't quite take enough off. So that was a bit of a bugger. It meant another full day surgery, some more chopping of my leg, and he had to take another flap area to fold that over, and I'll show you this picture now, which is looking rather gross because it was just before the stitches came out, and there was a lot more stitches in this side. So the initial removal was about 20 stitches, and this second one was about 30, so about 50 stitches all up. And I've got to say, this was actually really sore whilst it was healing, and because there was so many stitches, and as they started to heal, it was really pulling. It was very painful, and getting the stitches out was rather traumatic because they'd kind of left them in a little bit long, with all the COVID lockdowns and everything we've had, and it just worked out that it took a while to get the stitches out, so that was rather painful. But all's good, and it's healed up nicely now. And here's a photo. Once I felt a bit like a reptile. It was a bit scaly at one stage, but it did heal well, and I'll show you in a tick what it looks like right now. But the message here is, get things checked out, because when they're small and when they're insignificant, it's probably just a little nick and away you go and everything's happy. Regular skin checks aren't a problem, and if you don't do it, the alternative is not good. Skin cancers or melanomas cause lots of other cancers later on. They can spread, and I believe the statistics I was reading a little bit in Australia, I think we're renowned as one of the highest rates of skin cancer in the world, probably because we all get out in the sun and get sunburnt. But I think the stats were something like 1 Australian dies every 5 hours, which equates to about, I don't know, nearly 2,000 deaths a year from melanoma. And probably I would suggest that all of those could be prevented, or at least most of them. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but when people don't get them checked and they spread is where the big issue is, in my understanding. And it's not just Australia. I was reading in the States that this year there is something like, let me just check my figures, I wrote it down. There's something like they expect about 7,000 people to die this year in America from melanoma. So it's a lot of people, and it's a lot of preventable deaths. So the message here, I know I've talked on a bit about it, but the message here is, look, just go and ask. It's no harm to ask. You just never know what you might be preventing. And if you're wrong, and if it's nothing to worry about, well, what's it matter? If you're right, then you've done the right thing to get it checked. So don't stress about it. It's just something that's there, and if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, but you can help this by just going and asking. So I haven't done this as a favour to the medical community or an advert for checking skin cancers. It's just an experience I had this year, and I felt like I should share it. And like I said, even though it has nothing to do with recycling, it's something that happened, and I'm kind of sharing my life through you guys, because basically everything I do is the shop or fixing things or recycling. So when something else pops up, well, I feel I can share it with you, and as I said, if it just helps one person, then it's worthwhile. I'll show you what it looks like now. Okay, here we go. I'm showing a bit of leg, and if we roll my sock down, you can see now I have a really cool, it's a bit hard to tell in this angle, hang on, I'll spin around. I have a really cool butterfly tattoo. So you can see all the stitches. It's probably about, that's the second one there. It's probably a month, maybe 5 weeks. So it's all good now. It's not sore. It's got some colour back in it. It still feels a little numb. I guess they've done some nerve damage in there. It certainly hasn't affected things, and I've been back playing table tennis, which we do, and I'll do a video on that one day, because a lot of you don't know I play table tennis fairly seriously. And Christine and I also go rock and roll dancing, but of course COVID's put a stop to that. So there you go, that ends my little rant about melanoma. Probably something you didn't expect to hear from me, but it's something I didn't expect to happen. So thanks for watching. I hope you've got something out of that. It may just plant a seed that helps you or someone else. So I'll get back to my recycling videos now. Look out for my next one coming soon. Bye.